Healthcare is too expensive. Employers are offsetting costs onto their employees. Who will make health benefits affordable for hard-working Americans and their families?
You will! This is the Empowering Plans podcast, a show dedicated to helping you once again emphasize the benefits in your benefit plan. Now prepare to learn,
Plan,
save,
and protect with the FIA Group.
All right, welcome to another episode of Empowering Plans. Today you have myself, Kelly Dempsey, along with Naga Vivekanandan. This is Naga's first podcast. I'm going to call her out on that. She's probably going to be embarrassed, but this is Naga's first podcast. She's been with our team for a couple months now, so we're bringing her into this world. And today there's been a flurry of activity happening in the last month or so, with lots of things happening, new Supreme Court cases as the Supreme Court was issuing them like hotcakes before they took their summer break. And then we obviously had the passage of the one big beautiful bill right before the 4th of July holiday. So there's lots going on, lots to talk about. But one of the most exciting pieces that I think all of our clients will be welcoming with open arms is the changes related to telemedicine and DPC, direct primary care, as these are things that we had kind of long hoped for, and they were, part of the package at the end of the calendar year 2024. Then they were removed, and they were in and they were out and all these things. So we have good news, and we're going to go through what those look like. And we're going to do a little bit of background about the telemedicine DPC and why they've been problematic historically for high deductible health plans that were HSA qualified. And then we'll talk about the changes that are now going to happen going forward. So with that, I will turn it over to Naga to go through a little bit of the background of what is a high deductible health plan that is HSA qualified. What does that mean?
Right. So let's get into the basics of why this new bill even matters, because honestly, the rules around HDHPs can feel like alphabet soup if you're not living in this world every day. I'm newer to this world. I've certainly learned a lot these past few months. So the deal is that HDHPs, they have a very particular set of rules, and they're all enforced by the IRS under something called Section 223. And if an employer's plan wants to be considered an HDHP and let employees contribute to HSAs, it has to meet these rules exactly. So there are no exceptions and no wiggle room. And one of the biggest sources of confusion that we see, especially for employers, is that the Affordable Care Act has one set of rules for health plans, and the IRS has another set of rules for HDHPs. So they aren't the same. And one of the biggest differences is the limits on how much employees can spend out of pocket in a year. And here's what surprises a lot of people. HDHPs actually have lower out-of-pocket limits than what the ACA allows. And these numbers change every year because they're adjusted for inflation. So it's easy to see how an employer could think that their plan is compliant under ACA rules, only to find out that it doesn't meet the IRS's stricter HDHP standards. It trips up a lot of people. And now, let's not forget deductibles. HDHPs have to meet a minimum deductible amount before most benefits, like prescriptions or doctor visits, can be covered. So these minimums are set by the IRS every year, and again, they tend to increase over time. So if you are offering an HDHP, you have to make sure that you're hitting those deductible minimums. There's also this tricky little rule called the embedded out-of-pocket maximum for family coverage. Basically, even if a family hasn't met the full family deductible yet, if just one person in the family hits their individual cap, the plan has to start covering all their expenses for the rest of the year. It's meant to protect individuals, but it also adds another layer of complexity for employers managing HDHPs. And then, of course, there are the limits on how much employees can stash away in their HSAs every year, again, set by the IRS and subject to change annually. These limits depend on whether you have individual or family coverage, and if you're over a certain age, there's even a catch-up contribution you can make. Now, if all of this sounds overwhelming, it kind of is, but there's actually a very helpful resource that lays it all out. IRS Publication 969. It's basically the instruction manual for HSAs, HDHPs, and similar plans. Admittedly, it might not be the most thrilling read, but it does explain everything in black and white terms. And the main takeaway here is that HDHPs operate in a totally different regulatory space than other health plans. And you really have to know these rules to avoid mistakes, because mistakes can be costly. So if you accidentally allow benefits that aren't permitted, your employees could lose their HSA eligibility, and that creates tax headaches for everyone. So this is exactly why there was so much confusion about covering things like telemedicine and direct primary care under HDHPs. These services were becoming more common, especially during the pandemic, but they didn't neatly fit into the IRS's definitions. So employers were then left asking, wait, can we offer this, or are we risking our HSA status? And that's where the big, beautiful bill comes in. But before we get there, just know that the bottom line with HDHPs is that they're complex and every detail matters. So if you're not sure whether your plan is fully compliant, that's where people like us at VIA can really help.
Yeah. And I like to, one of the things that I guess a tool that I like to think about, or a trick that I like to think about, is that ERISA is like a floor. ERISA sets the stage for what you need to do. It's kind of the basics. Same thing with like the ACA. You're allowed to be more generous, but you have to at least hit that floor. Whereas the IRS is kind of a ceiling. It's this is where you got to stop at. You can't be more expansive than these IRS rules. So that's the way I kind of like to think about it when I look at those. And the added catch that I'll throw in here is that there's a lot of different types of impermissible other coverage, and that threshold is pretty low. So when you're on a high deductible health plan and you're contributing to an HSA, you can't have other types of health coverage specifically. And what we mean by other health coverage, again, it's pretty much anything more than first aid qualifies as some sort of health coverage. So that's why this telemedicine and direct primary care and even on-site clinics kind of fall into that bucket. And like Naga said, this was not really, these things were becoming fairly common before COVID, but COVID really kind of like launched it into, we need some sort of rule to help us so that we're able to cover these things, because it was becoming very problematic with access to doctors. Obviously, a lot of times we weren't allowed to go to the doctor's office. So the only thing that was available to people was getting service through a telemedicine type option. So that's where these struggles have come into play. And, one of the reasons why this was, again, a challenging situation. And, when it comes to telemedicine and direct primary care, very often there's like this subscription charge. And that's where a lot of plans and employers were struggling with, how do I reconcile and offer this extra coverage as part of my health plan, but how do I price it? And that's been kind of, one of those $1 million questions that we get asked all the time as well. If I have to pay and charge employees for telemedicine access before their deductible is met, what do I charge? And there's no good answer to that question. I know that we've probably frustrated quite a bit of our clients just asking that question of what is that number, because there is no magic number. It's kind of a try something, make it a reasonable number, kind of try to color within the lines, make it that good faith effort. And that's what we're kind of banking on, for lack of a better term, because there wasn't really a clear rule here. Then as COVID progressed, there became this safe harbor for telemedicine, where plans were allowed to cover telemedicine services at 100% without charging a deductible. And it was because of the situation that we were going through, those unprecedented times. And over the course of several years, the telemedicine safe harbor has been extended. And then unfortunately, we were kind of left sitting here going, what's happening at the end of 2024 when the safe harbor ended and it wasn't extended? And everybody knows that this has had bipartisan support. So it's something that was supported from both sides. This was going to make everybody happy. And it was very unclear why they didn't make it permanent at the end of 2024. So now the rules are changing again for the better this time. So we actually have good news. So I'll turn it back over to Naga to talk about what has changed with telemedicine and the safe harbor. And now it's no longer a safe harbor and it's just a rule.
Yeah. So thanks to the big, beautiful bill, that safe harbor is now permanent. HDHPs can cover telemedicine services before the deductible is met forever, and employees won't lose their ability to contribute to their HSAs. And this is a huge relief for employers who want to keep offering virtual care as a part of their benefits. And here's a little bonus. This change is retroactive to the start of 2025. So this means even if your plan year started before this law passed, you can apply it as if it had always been in place for this year. What's really remarkable about this change is that it passed with strong bipartisan support, and that is pretty rare these days, but lawmakers from both sides of the aisle agreed. Telemedicine isn't going away, and people shouldn't have to choose between virtual care and their tax savings. And now, if you're an employer or an administrator, you might be wondering what the next steps are. So first, if you haven't already amended your plan to allow pre-deductible telemedicine, this is your sign. You'll want to update your plan document and possibly even go back and reprocess any telemedicine claims from earlier this year if your TPA allows it. On the flip side, if you already adopted this change under the temporary rules during the pandemic, it's still worth checking your documents and making sure everything lines up with the permanent version of the rule. And there might be some small tweaks that you need to make. One other thing to keep in mind is whether you can apply these changes immediately or have to wait until your plan's renewal date depends on your TPA. So some TPAs are super flexible and they might allow mid-year changes or even retroactive claim adjustments. Others are stricter and they might require you to wait until your next renewal cycle. So definitely check in with them. But the big takeaway is that telemedicine is here to stay, and now it's officially HSA friendly. So that is a win for employees, for employers, and honestly just a win for common sense, especially nowadays. And of course, if you're not sure how to navigate this, that's where we come in at FIA, so we can help you figure out how to apply this rule and make sure you're taking advantage of every opportunity here.
Yeah, and for those CPAs that might be listening, this is your opportunity to kind of set your business standards for what you want to do, because obviously reprocessing claims is time consuming, depending on, the size of the plan, how many claims have already been incurred. We're already halfway through any calendar year plans. So we understand that this is a big, it's a big relief to allow this to be the rule. Everybody's happy about it, but at the same time, it's like, okay, if I wasn't breaking the rules for the last 6 months, how do I go back and help employers out? Do I need to do it? Don't have to do it? It's going to be a business decision. So it's going to be something that employers and their TPAs are going to want to work together and figure out what makes sense for everybody. And that might involve a little bit of analysis of how many claims have you incurred, how many claims would have to be reprocessed. There's a lot of intricacies here, and that's potentially a lot of claims depending on, how many plans you administer. So it's not ideal to have it change mid-year, which is why there's also the options right now. There's nothing in the rules that say you have to backdate it to 1/1/2025. So those that maybe were gambling of type and might have just tried to keep paying claims as they had been before, hoping this would happen, you're in luck. You're not going to get in trouble if you were paying things impermissibly, I guess, for the last 6 months, because now the rules have changed. So there's definitely conversations to be had about what's going to happen and how to do it. And from the DPC side, the rules are still a little bit different. It's not necessarily 100% lining up with what we're allowing for telemedicine. So in this situation, they're allowing DPC to coexist alongside HSA plans, but there are some limits and guidelines that are going to be around here. So if you have a health plan and then you have a separate DPC arrangement, there has to be a cap associated with it. So the monthly membership fee or scope of services fee, whatever you want to call it, it has to be less than $150 per month for self-only coverage or $300 for family. And that number, like Naga explained with the rest of the IRS rules, is likely to change annually for inflation. So it's a starting point, but obviously, when it comes to the different price points and the different vendors, they're going to be all over the place. So figuring out how to adjust these and make these into the rules, you have time, because this rule doesn't go into effect right away. So this one doesn't go into effect until December 31st of 2025, which is kind of a weird date. Usually we're used to seeing first of the year. So I'm not really sure why they specifically said December 31st this time. I don't know, maybe Brady has something in his crystal ball to explain that one for me. But this is going to help if you don't want to roll DPC directly into your health plan. That's kind of been where we've been in the past, is in order to make these coexist, DPC need to be part of the health plan and not separate from the health plan. In this situation, now you're allowed to keep them separate. So the rules are changing. So now's the time to start planning. So you have kind of 6 months, a little less, to figure out for those 1-1 groups of how you're going to handle this and how employers want to offer these things, if they want to offer them side by side. I know historically, Adam Russo, our CEO, has talked a lot about or like direct primary care, because that's something that we as a company entered into our plan quite some time ago. But we don't have a high deductible health plan that's HSA qualified. So sometimes people would hear, oh, you're using DPC, I want to use that. How do you make it work with an HDHP? And then we had to tell you the bad news about how to make them coexist, and it wasn't the same fun news as how we offer to our own employees. But it's all good because the rules are changing. So they're going to be able to coexist. So the last one in here, just to kind of give you some closing thoughts. I know I kind of snuck it in there at the very beginning, but the one thing that has not been addressed in these and has been, I would say, somewhat similarly popular to telemedicine and DPC is on-site clinics. We've seen a lot of employers over the last couple years want to create on-site clinics, and those are still going to present challenges for high deductible health plans that have HSAs. If those on-site clinics do anything more than just first aid. So first aid is your threshold. If it's anything more than first aid, if it's, immunizations like flu shots or anything else other than first aid, your threshold is going to be that could be impermissible other coverage, unless you somehow roll it into your health plan and make it part of the health plan, which there are a lot of considerations with on-site clinics, because as standalone services, they can also be subject to COBRA. We could do a whole nother podcast on that, and maybe we will one day. So we're not going to dig too much into it, but just know that on-site clinics aren't falling in the same realm as this DPC and telemedicine. So take those separate considerations, because they can still be disqualifying other coverage if you have a high deductible health plan, which is with an HSA. So again, like Naga said, if you guys have any questions, we're always here. We're always available. These are the things that we can help with and navigate all of this, this constant changing landscape that we have. But in this time for the better, it's actually good news. It's something that we all wanted, and we finally got our wish. So it's here. Any other closing thoughts, Naga? Anything else you want to throw in?
Nope, I don't think so.
All right. Well, thank you again for tuning into this episode of Empowering Plans, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of the year. Thank you.